Okay.
Everybody, just you say welcome, everybody. So, hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today, we have an update from a guest that was on about 10 months ago. Her name is Sarah Taylor. She is living with brain cancer, but she's living with an attitude of gratitude, and we're here to check in with her and see how she's been doing. How are you doing? And that's kind of a weird question to ask somebody with cancer, isn't it?
I'm grateful. I'm not grateful to have cancer. I mean, of course, that's not a choice I would make, but gosh, I mean, when I look around my life, I am grateful. So I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. But I have had a big change since I saw you last. And that change is that last time I saw you, I was not going to have cancer. I was not going to have surgery. And by the way, I do lose words a lot. So don't be surprised if you're needing to jump in and guess what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I just, here I go.
So you have had surgery in the last 10 months.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's what I was going to tell you. So I was planning on not having it. And then I had a secondary issue come in. I don't even remember the name of it, but long story short, I chose to have the surgery. And I was very much against it until I had a talk. And so I'll tell you about that in a second, because I think that's really, really helpful in so many ways, not just cancer or anything like that, but just daily life stuff. But just to give people a quick update, I am doing well. You know, my time of life for the type of cancer I have, glioblastoma, brain cancer on the left side. Those of you who know that kind of stuff, that's bad. And I don't have great genetics for it either. So I was given 7.5 months on average to live. I'm now about month 15, doing really well. And I'm still able to drive, which is incredible, and still able to talk. I do miss words. I do forget some things here and there, but in general, I'm doing shockingly well. So I feel like I'm really happy, and I'm still able to drive and go on long walks and things like that. So that's good.
That's incredible. Was it
Yeah.
scary? Was it scary? I can't imagine somebody cutting into your skull. I mean, I know you're probably asleep during that, but it still sounds like a scary operation.
Well, they actually keep you awake for this one.
No way. You're awake while they're cutting into your skull?
Yeah, no, I don't remember that. But they do keep you awake, because what they're doing is they're testing you as they're cutting out your brain and asking you questions to see if you can still answer them. And if you can't, then they're like, okay, stop here. We don't want to go any further, because she'll go really off board. So what they do is they, this is kind of interesting. I had an incredible surgeon who, well, I won't say anything negative, but he was known to be one of the top people in the world for this. And thankfully in Seattle, which is where I am part-time. And so let's see, where was I going to go with this story? So he, you know, I have this left brain, and I tend to be extremely left brain. Some people are kind of a little left and land a little right brain and stuff. And I'm generally not. I was very left brain and was a scientist for 20 years and everything. And, here I am trying to remember my points. What was I just saying about?
Well, I was asking, I was shocked that you had the operation while you were awake.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So this guy was operating me, and what they do is they showed me this several times beforehand, is they show you this little list of pictures, and you say horse, ladder, car, you know, and then they do that while you're having surgery to see if you can still answer questions. And as soon as you stop on, you know, you miss 1 or 2 or 3, then they say, okay, we're done. Well, when they did my surgery from the very beginning, I couldn't answer them. I would sit there and go, oh, don't tell me. I know that. That's a, you know, and that happened from the very beginning, which didn't surprise them because I'm so left-brained. And the surgeon I had said, you know, I'm not going to stop yet. And he had like 6 people that were, you know, the ones in training that are kind of like, are you sure, doctor? Are you sure you're not going to stop? He said, I'm not stopping. He said, not yet. He said, Sarah, do you have any animals? Do you have any dogs? I'm like, oh, I love dogs. I actually have 3 cats. And as long as I could tell him about my 3 cats without losing all my words, he kept operating. And then he changed the subject to play any sports and, you know, so on and so forth. And that's how I ended up getting the whole thing taken out. And when I say the whole thing, I don't mean the whole brain. I mean the whole part that's tumor.
But how are you awake? I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, how can they do this?
That's my understanding. Now, I don't remember being awake. Apparently I was, but apparently your brain doesn't have hardly any I don't remember the word now, but the thing that would hurt. So it's
Like pain receptors, maybe?
yes, yes,
But
thank you.
didn't they have to cut your skull to get to the brain?
Yes, and they had me down for that part. But once, it's only a short time out, and then they wake you back up again and start doing the testing as they're cutting open the brain, cutting the
Jeez.
brain itself. Yeah.
Wanda says, I've been following Sarah on Facebook ever since I heard about her and how amazing she is. Yeah, that's a great
Aw,
place to follow you. I'm going to put a link to that in case people
thank
want
you.
to like
That's
follow
really
you.
kind.
That is amazing. I just can't imagine, man.
It is.
I'm
It's
a,
really incredible. But if I could give one piece of advice, just starting, because this has been one of the best pieces of advice I've received in my whole life, and it's not just for cancer patients. So as you know, when I talked to you last time on the show, I had decided I'm not going to do the surgery. I'm just going to let things go. And there were some, reasons for that. And like I said, I used to be a medical researcher, so it's not like I don't know things. But I decided not to do it. And then something else happened, which made me change my mind. But it wasn't that I really changed my mind, it's how this happened. So, having worked in research, I have a lot of friends that are doctors, and I called up the smart ones and said, hey, should I do this or not? And after they heard the new news, they all said the same thing. They said, Sarah, I really think you should now. And I was hearing them, but I was not getting excited about it or not thinking, oh, I really do like this idea. I just never felt really good about it, but I felt like I should be looking into it because I knew there were a couple people really close to me, including my husband, who really wanted me to do it. And so I finally called my friend out here named Barry in Hawaii. And Barry is actually a doctor too, but he's a psychiatrist. And I called him up and he gave me totally different advice. And it was so interesting. And this is what I really want people to learn because I learned so much from it. I said, Barry, here's the situation. Should I have it or not? Here's the ups and downs on both sides. And one of the downs was they said that about 10% of patients, and I'm probably actually higher than 10% because I'd waited so long. They said about 10% will have some pretty serious side effect. Like maybe you won't be able to read anymore, or you'll go blind, or, about 10% will have something serious. And like for me, reading, I love reading. So like that would have been a horrible one. I never would have had the cancer if they said, you're not going to be able to read. So, knowing that this could be quite serious, I was waiting to see what Barry said. And Barry said this. He said, Sarah, I don't know whether to tell you to have it or not. We don't know what's going to happen. All I'm going to tell you is this. Make your best choice that you can. And then when it happens, don't assume that, oh, the bad thing happened. Oh, it's terrible. You don't want to plan ahead of what's going to be bad. So we think that, for example, if we can't see anymore, oh, that would be terrible if I was blind. But you don't know until you go through it. So just wait and see what happens, live it, and then decide if it's great or miserable. But don't assume going in that that's great or miserable.
I do that with every decision. I always do what you're just telling us not to do.
That's amazing. Oh. Well, I think most of us do. It's like, oh my gosh, if I go blind, it's going to be terrible. So we go into surgery. Oh God, please don't let me go blind, please. And really, honestly, I'll tell you what happened for me is that I used to read 2 to 3 hours a day. And if you hold me a book right here, I can read it to you. And then if I read you 2 paragraphs and you said, what'd you just read? I'd just start laughing and I'd say, I don't know. So I can't read anymore. And Barry's advice was beautiful because if I had been told that, I would not be able to read and remember it afterward, I wouldn't have had the surgery. But yet I'm so happy. I'm so happy with so many great things in life that I've had for years and things that have happened recently that it's fantastic. So I'm
Wow.
really
I don't know if you ever saw a movie with Adam Sandler, 50 First Dates, where Drew Barrymore, every day she wakes up and he has to explain who he is because she can't
yeah,
remember past 24 hours.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So that happens to me, not like that, but it happens a bit where people will say, what did you just read or something? And I'll go, well, I don't remember, but it must have been great because I feel so sweet. Like oh, it must have been lovely. Or, oh, I think it was kind of scary and, things like that. So like watching the TV or something, I don't watch news. I haven't for years, but I will on very rare occasions, like when, we have presidential stuff and the chemo, or not chemo. What's the name of the main thing that we're all dealing with around the world?
Oh, pandemic.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like chemo. It's toxic.
Yeah, yeah. I did watch for a couple weeks on those two items just to see what was going on, and oftentimes I couldn't remember the details, but I can go, oh yeah, it was kind of scary, or oh yeah, it's good, or that's all I
Well,
can
it's
think.
kind of like it forces you to be in the moment because you don't really have a choice.
Yes, that's so true. And I used to train on that because that was part of my spirituality, was trying to train to be here now. And I really did get that way over the past, I'm gonna say like the past, especially like 4 years, 5 years. I feel like I'm generally here now, which I love. But now, even if I didn't want to be here now, if I was trying to remember, oh, what was I supposed to do right now? I can't remember. So I'm just being here now.
Yeah, I think so many people live in the future that has never even happened, and they're afraid.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that I've really learned, is that when you are here now, you're not in the past being sad, you're not in the future being scared. You're being here now. And I think that's so helpful. It's so helpful for people to be happy, and in general, things are going well right now, right this minute.
How do we do that without having to go through what you went through? I mean, is there a way to do it without something like that happening? Like to
Well,
just
yeah.
to decide, okay,
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because like I told you, I've been doing this for about 5 years now. So I did learn how to do it before I got my diagnosis. And for me, it was really just, I was meditating. And at first, the first time I meditated, like for a half hour, I started thinking right away about whatever was going on in life. And I never remembered it until 30 minutes, the bell went off. And so the whole 30 minutes I kind of quote wasted. But then the next time, 15 minutes in, oh, I'm supposed to like just keep my eyes closed and notice my breath. And then over time I would catch that 4 or 5 times, and then over time it was like every minute or two. It didn't take long, maybe 3 months, 4 months of practicing this every day, where I was able to meditate really quite well and be calm. And does that answer your question? I don't remember what the
yeah.
question.
Do you still meditate?
Oh, at first I didn't, because my brain just was being weird. But now I do, and my brain's changing back again. Things are changing a lot with my after my surgery. So yeah, I do now, and I've had some of the most amazing meditations now. And for anyone who's heard of Ram Dass, he's like a specialist in spirituality, who died a year ago, but he was really popular in the 70s. And anyway, he lived close by, and his house is still there. So that's where I go. I'll be going there in a couple hours to meditate there.
That's cool. Have
Yeah.
you written a book about your what you've been going through? Because I know you've written a lot of other books.
Yeah, thank you. I wish I had. That's the one thing I really want to do, and I've kind of thought about it, and I don't know if I'm really going to be able to do that or not. So yeah, I do have a couple friends that have offered to help write it, so I might take one or two up on it.
Yeah, because I think it's a story that would help a lot of people, especially people living with a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, in any difficult diagnosis, and if I could suggest some things for people to think about in life, no matter what you're going through. You might have a pretty darn happy life right now, and maybe you don't have cancer, but it's not a happy life, or maybe it's whatever. I wrote down a few questions that I thought were really helpful. So can you still see me?
I can see you.
Okay, good. So the first one I thought was to ask yourself, is what you spend your time doing really what makes you happy? So imagine that what you have going on in your life, that could be desperately spending your time trying to look good, or get promoted, or impress people, or make money to buy fancy things, or make your kids look good, or whatever. I mean, are those really important? And some of them are. Some of them are for sure. But it could be that a lot of those things you could let go of. And again, if you're here, you're not in the past, you're not in the future, but you're here, noticing like, oh my gosh, listen to those birds, and oh gosh, beautiful clouds go out the window right now. I mean, it's so hard to be unhappy when you're in that, but many of us have had happy issues. Maybe we're with a person who's really not a great person to be with, or maybe we're in a job that we really don't like, but maybe it makes money and we're sticking with it, or we're afraid because we don't know how to do anything else. These can be some pretty big questions with scary answers. But going through those things can really, really change life.
Yeah, I see so many people just without cancer not living their best life because of fear or staying in a situation, whether it's a job or a person, because they feel trapped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's another question. Here's number 2 out of 5. I wrote, write down everything you're doing today, picking up dry cleaning, shopping at Target, listening to this web event, whatever. And ask yourself which of those things you would still do if you knew your time was very limited. You know, that's one thing that's changed a bit for me. Not that I had a whole long list of things I was getting rid of when I was diagnosed, but certain things. I used to be very, today I'm going to mark these things off the list that need to get done. And really, a lot of them really didn't need to get done. It was quite a person who had to be super clean and had to have everything ready for dinner or whatever. Well, some of it needs to get done. We need to eat. But I didn't need to make it quite as serious as I have before. So,
Yeah, that's a great question. I try, is that the older I get, the less I do things I don't want to do for
yeah,
any reason.
I think a lot of people learn that. Yeah. Okay. Question 3. What would truly make you happy? So something for people to think about. Sometimes you know the answer right away and you're not doing it, or you are doing it. Sometimes you don't even know the answer. You've been so busy, trying to live the life, the American life where you make money and you look good and whatever else. But what would really make you happy? Another question is, why are you really here? And for me, that's more of a what am I doing with my time question. And so that's one of the things I'm really grateful for, is that I don't know if my parents taught me this or what, but somebody kind of taught me as a kid. It must have been my parents. Like, go do things. Don't just sit there and say, "Oh, wouldn't that be neat to write a book?" Or "Wouldn't that be neat to get on a, you know, roller coaster?" Whatever you're thinking, like, well, go do it. What's keeping you? And sometimes there might be things that are keeping you. I mean, I get that, but most of the time there's not. It's just like a fear of some sort that's stopping you. So, and then here's a hard one. It can be hard. Who is truly important to you? Who would you choose to or want to spend your time with if you knew your time was limited? So I have to say, I've been grateful that I have an incredible husband, a lovely family. But I've had a few other people coming back to my life that I haven't talked to in years, and one in particular has just been amazing lately. So think about that. And for some of us, that's just I need to call a friend I haven't talked to in many years. But for some people, that could be a really hard one. Like, wow, I've been so unhappy in this marriage, or whatever you're going through. So I know it's sometimes a great question to ask yourself, and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. Every time I talk to you, I can't help but think of the Thornton Wilder play, Our Town. I don't know if you remember that, but Emily, there's this famous line, I think it's at the end, where she says to the narrator, do any human beings ever realize life while they live it every minute? And then he says, no, saints and poets, maybe they do some. The stage manager says, that's all human beings are, just blind people. And that's just what, when talking to you, reminds me of that play, because people aren't even aware that they're so, and especially now with these, I just wish social media was, I'm glad that YouTube's created so we can talk to each other, but in general, I don't want to live my life on social media. I hate it. I hate that I said hate, but I don't like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I don't like any of it. And I never have. And so I don't participate anymore. Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you know that, and you're going after what you're enjoying, because so many people will be like you. You're pretty famous now. Well, I'm famous. I got to get on Facebook today. Okay. I got to do it 15 minutes a day, No, you say no. And I
No, I
love,
don't. I mean, I have somebody helping me, and I mean, I don't want to say I never. Don't, I want to get to the point where it's not even on my phone. But for my mental health, my psychologist, Dr. Lyle, told me years ago I don't have the right personality for this, and I don't like it. That's the thing. I wasn't even. I know there's some people who genuinely like it, but I never did. And so I feel like if that's what it means to be successful, to make money, you have to do this. Then I can just get a job. Well, like at a bakery as a vegan chef. I mean, I'd rather do that.
well, I hope you live near me if you ever do that.
Well, what part of Hawaii are you in?
We're in Maui.
Well,
We're
why
oh, go
don't you
ahead.
see? Well, Dr. Doug Lyle's in Maui. Do you know who he is? He's my friend. He wrote The Pleasure Trap.
Yes. Yes. And did I know he was here? I don't think I did know that.
Maybe you guys could hook up. He's staying with Dr. Jen Hawk while they work on their book.
Oh, I love that. That would be great.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
I'm quite sure that we met a couple of times. Not that he would remember, but I went up to him after he spoke or something at one of those
And
things.
and I'm trying to think. You know who else lives in Hawaii is Dr. Erminie Van Dyken, the plant-based surgeon.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of him. I mean, I don't think I
Her,
know him.
yeah,
I think
I think you'd
her.
like.
Oh,
I think she's in Maui. You got a lot of great people there.
okay. There are quite a few. In fact, I have to tell you, I was so happy. I wasn't happy that this happened, but years ago, my dad came out with the family for the 4th of July. And on the 4th of July, he ended up, my sister looks down at he had shorts on and his left calf was huge. And she's like, honey, or she's like, Daddy, why is your left calf so big? And my husband's a doctor and he went, oh my God, we got to go to the ER immediately. Um, and of course, me forgetting words, I can't remember the word of it, but it's like a heart thing.
Like a blood clot or
I don't think it was a blood clot.
thrombosis. I don't know. I'm not
I
a
think it
doctor.
might have been thrombosis.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people who know that are watching this going, oh my gosh, you can't remember anything,
Oh.
which is fine.
Yeah, but if you can't remember stuff, like you can't remember bad stuff either. So maybe it's not so
That's true.
bad.
That's true. So why did I bring that up about my dad having that heart thing?
We were talking about different doctors, plant-based doctors that
Oh
lived on the
yeah,
island. One's a
thank you.
surgeon. Yeah.
So my dad ends up in the hospital over on Oahu, and he's on the east side, that area. And so he has this doctor, he's this cardiologist who's coming in to look at him a lot. And my dad's there for like 3 or 4 days. And the cardiologist is a really nice guy. We really liked him a lot, seemed great. And then after he was done and he's getting my dad out, he said, okay, do you guys have any more questions? And I said, yeah, this is a hard issue. I'm just wondering if we need to be thinking about dad's diet. Didn't say anything about my diet. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, there are 4 of us doctors here that follow this diet, and I know a lot of you don't want to, but I would highly recommend you go vegan. And of course, I jumped out of my chair, yay! Because of my family back then. That was a long time ago. They thought I was a little bit crazy. But now, the fact that 4 cardiologists in that clinic were vegan was like, wow. And that's pretty true in Hawaii. There's a lot of vegan doctors and a lot of vegan people.
Yeah, what an ideal place to live. I love your questions, and I was typing them in the chat, and maybe I can type them all together. But it's like you want to say, like, what would you do if this was your last day on Earth? And then that's what you should be doing, like right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I love that. And if it's last day, that might think you, oh, well, okay, I'm not going to do anything important. And maybe you do need to do some important things. But I do like the idea. What if this was your last 3 months or your last 6 months? Who would you be spending your time with? What would you be doing? If you still needed to work for those last 6 months just to pay your bills, where would you choose to work if it was? I mean, these are great questions to really ask yourself. So, like I said, I know it can be very difficult for some people if you're in a relationship or a job or whatever that's really unhappy making. But if you get through that and you change that if you need to, it can really change years of the rest of your life.
Once I left LA 2 years ago, that's kind of how, I mean, I'm pretty much doing everything I want when I want. The thing is, if I really thought I only had 3 months left, what I might do differently is I hate to admit this publicly. I would never not be vegan. Don't get me wrong, but I might eat a lot of crap. I mean, vegan crap. And then my fear would be, then I'd gain all my weight back. And then they'd say, oh, by the way, you're going to be fine. Now
Yeah.
200 pounds again, but I might. I mean, but I don't know. Maybe I would. I don't know. It's hard to think there. But I really,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
love your
can tell you I
questions.
did that. but but I really haven't changed much at all, because honestly, even before I went vegan, my favorite meal was always a big salad with lots of yummy stuff in it. And I don't need cheese and, meat or anything. So really my diet has not changed much, but I will say, I probably shouldn't say on your show one of the things I'm drinking, should I?
Well, I mean, haters gonna hate if they do, but
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, haters will hate, but I will say, knowing that 100% of the cases of my diagnosis, they're 99% are dead within 5 years, and most of them are dead within the first year and a half. So I'm not going to worry about it if anyone's upset with this, but I have been drinking those calorie-free Cokes. I know.
Ooh.
I hadn't drank them
I thought you were going to say
years.
something like, I don't know. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe that's the cure. Did any of the plant-based doctors get involved with your story at all, or even know about it and wonder about it?
The only one I've called and told is Joel Furman, because I used to work for him, and he gave me great advice early on. The issue I had is that, he said, hey, and this could be helpful for anyone else who knows someone with brain cancer, which is pretty rare. Only like 3 people out of 100,000 get it. But if you know someone who gets it, they say go on a, what's that opposite diet of ours where they eat?
Keto, maybe keto, like
Yeah.
high fat.
Right.
Interesting.
And instead of being like 70% fat, they wanted 85% fat for your brain, and pretty much hardly any carbs, almost none. So it's like a little bit of protein and a ton of a ton
Yeah,
of
fat.
fat.
Like, oh, that would
Fat.
be hard, especially vegan. You have to eat a lot of
That was
avocados,
the
nuts,
issue.
and seeds. I don't know if I'd
That was the
enjoy
issue.
that, but
And even nuts and seeds, I couldn't have a ton of, because they aren't, a lot of them are like 70% fat, and they're not
interesting.
85.
Wow.
So long story short, I just thought, I'm not willing to eat meat. And that, for me, being vegan is a personal issue. It's a spiritual issue. It's not just a health issue. If it was just health, I could see changing it. But for me, that wasn't the case. So I stuck this diet really carefully for the first, I think, 9 weeks. He said, you got to do the first 9 weeks for sure. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm still here. I don't know.
That's interesting. I know that Dr. Furman had a lot of experience with fasting. Did he ever suggest that?
He didn't suggest that. No, not for
Interesting.
this one. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Have you met anyone else with your diagnosis?
It's funny you say that. I haven't, but well, actually, that's not true. I was at a kirtan, or for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a spiritual singing event, and they're quite common here on Maui. And I was at one, so we were in the middle of this thing, and the guy who does the violin comes out, and while he's playing, and he walks over to us, and he says, "Hey, Sarah, come here." And he's playing his song, walks me over to this girl and says, "You guys have the same diagnosis." And he walks to the front. It was so nice of him to do that. And we didn't really get a chance to talk in the middle of a concert, but I just was put in touch with her again just today. And so we've been texting back and forth about getting back together, which will be neat.
Wow. I mean, how is she doing with it? Is she embraced your kind of attitude, or
I
is
think
she?
so. I don't know. I haven't talked to her, but her texts were very sweet and loving. And, she seems like she's in a pretty good place. So
And it's just it just seems like, I said this before, but my mom would always say life isn't fair. Like you did everything right. It's not. I mean, not that I'm saying that if somebody smokes they should get lung cancer, but like, you know what I'm trying to say. I hope you know what I'm trying to say. It's
yeah.
like you didn't really do anything that this should happen.
Yeah. And they really don't know what causes brain cancer. They've been looking into it, and they have a list of like 3 things that they think cause it. But those 3 things are so random and rare. I've never done them. It's like, oh, if you've been I'm going to make this up. I don't remember. Like, oh, if you've been a construction person and you've used this type of XYZ to make blah, 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 that can get in your nose and cause brain cancer. Well, I'm like, well, I've never done that. I don't even know what that is. So all 3 examples were nothing that helped. But
I don't think you mind answering this. I think you did before. Daryl wanted to know how old you are.
oh, I'm 49 now.
Wow.
Yeah, 49. Lost a lot of hair during surgery, and if anyone looks at that last video they did, they'll see like, whoa. she looks a lot different. But that's another thing that I love to teach people is like, and I believe this for years. It doesn't have to do with my diagnosis, but I will say with my spirituality, one of the things I learned is that we are not our bodies. And I know that sounds strange, but if I said, hey, if I'm my body and then I get in a car wreck and you have to cut off my arms and legs, am I not me anymore? It's like, okay, well, we can go through like who we are in a long, that's a Buddhist topic, which I love. But what I find interesting is, oh boy, I had a really good point. Now I just lost it. What was I talking about?
Um, oh, I'm trying to remember now too. Wait, we were talking about that. I was saying like you get like a smoker might get lung cancer. We don't want to make them feel bad, but like there's a link between their behavior and the outcome. Whereas in your case, it didn't feel like you did anything to contribute to the cancer. And you were saying that some of the things were really rare, like inhaling something. And when you were looking at the
Yeah. And then you said that this guy asked a question. Do you remember that?
let's see, let me see what there, if there's any
Gosh,
question. Well, there are some, no, so don't worry. There's some questions in the chat actually. Well, first, like, let me read a very nice comment from Plant-Based Louise. I had emailed and had a great conversation with Sarah when my brother was diagnosed shortly after she was on the show the first time. He has the same diagnosis, left side stage 4
oh yeah.
glioblastoma. Sorry about that, Louise. I did not know that about her brother, but thank you for talking to her. Daryl
Yeah.
says you look much younger than 49. And this is an interesting question from my chat. Just is going really fast today. But somebody said if it was right brain, would it be different? Which was on the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it would be different. So I'm going to get this slightly wrong, but in general, your right brain is things that make you like hear music and go, oh, it's beautiful, or see something gorgeous and like really get into it. People with a really right brain tend to be more likely to want to paint or draw or listen, things like that. People with a left brain, and I was very left brain, tend to be much more into details like, okay, well, give me the research on that before I'm going to turn my head and believe that. And they want to hear things and they want to read things and but that's how they kind of feel. But the other thing that's important is that you can cut off the entire right brain and live a lot longer. You'll still die young, but you can live, easily 6 years, probably. I think the average is probably another 6 years. You can get it cut out many times. But if the left brain gets diagnosed, if they cut out a lot of it, you'll literally forget your memory completely. So you could ask me a question and I won't even remember what you asked. And you can lose your ability to speak completely. So nothing comes out at all. And memory, I think I just said memory.
Mhm.
So left brain is a much worse one to have, and you can't do as much surgery and won't live as long. The average person lives, I think, 16 months, depending on your, this is again stage 4, glioblastoma, stage 4 brain cancer.
And it's not the kind of thing where you really had symptoms where they could have caught early, right?
No, I had no idea until I ended up in the ER one day. I can't remember the name of the thing I was going through that day, but I ended up in the ER, and it's quite common that no one notices it until they're quite a ways down. And the people who have lived, more than 5 years, they're almost always, especially if it's in the left brain, that's shocking. If they live, what they often have found is that somehow they found it early while it was still stage like 2 or something. And so that's usually the case. That rarely happens. It's those of us who get caught in stage 4, which is normal. Life is usually pretty short.
How's your family and husband dealing with this? Like, did they feel sad all the time for you, or do they just take your attitude of gratitude?
That's a great question. I remember having this, my parents were very sad at first. And I remember having this conversation with both of them that they really seemed to get. And that conversation was like, I've been alive now 49 years. At the time it was 47, the end of my 47th year. And I just thought, look, we can all be sad about this and say, this isn't fair. And you're young and you're healthy and you're vegan. And oh my God, and that's such a common way to go. And I said, but look, here's how I'm going instead. I'm sitting here feeling like, thank God I had such an amazing life for 47 years. Think about that. I mean, if you've been grown up with parents who love you, or a spouse that you love, or friends that you have, a, um, a time with your, what am I trying to say, a work job that you love doing that. I mean, there's so many ways to look at your life, and I have been so lucky to have almost all of those areas really, really good. I've had a couple of times in my life that weren't great, and they were short. And, when I say short, like a year or two and done. And I'm just so grateful for that. So I think if people focus on that, it's so much easier to be happy and grateful.
Yeah, this is just, I mean, it's just, we need this as a daily reminder. I almost wish you went live every day like me so I could watch you and be inspired and I just have to think about you more often.
Yeah. I would say the same thing every day. I mean, it would just like be here now and be grateful. Be
Yeah.
grateful for everything you've had, everything in front of you. Just that's all I would be saying every day. Be here now and be grateful.
That's really the secret. Denise said, "Did you share what your symptoms are?" But other than, I know that sometimes you're struggling for words. Other than that, do you have a lot of symptoms or any discomfort?
Um, I'm doing pretty well. So, as you can tell already, I'm starting to lose my mind a little bit. Like in the middle of a sentence, I forget what I'm talking about. So that happens. Something that's going really well right now, which I'm very grateful for, is that I often forget words. So I can be in the middle of what I'm trying to say, but can't remember the word. I forget people's names a lot. Like people, it used to just be people I didn't know that well, or, I know them for a long time, but didn't know them that well. Now I'm forgetting a lot of people's names, but I don't forget my history with them.
If they look familiar, though, you recognize them. You just can't
Oh
think of
yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So far, that's all going fine. I don't know if it's going to continue going fine or if I'm going to totally forget people and forget histories and stuff. I don't know. Um, so that's all really good. I can still drive. I can still walk. I like to walk, 4 to 6 miles a day. I like to be with friends on the beach, that kind of thing, going for a walk. So that's great. I would say, other than my memory being an issue, I have a handful of medical issues, that you guys probably don't really, things like, diarrhea, that kind of thing. Okay. I don't want to go into those little details. But the other one I would say that is probably the hardest thing I've gone through so far, and that's my vision. Because if I get close and I'm looking up, if you look at this eye, this one's looking up fine, but this one's not. And same thing if I look to the right and look down. So what happens is right now before I could see pretty darn well, but if I tried to, keep my head straight, but look down and to the left, I know that I'm going into details here, but that was what was affected. Now almost everything's affected really close. So if I'm not moving my head and I just look to the side of my computer, the corner of my computer is already, I'm seeing two versions of them without moving my head. So what that means is that there's a good chance I will need a special pair of glasses to actually see straight ahead without seeing double of everything. And I'm really trying hard not to worry about it, because it doesn't sound good to me, and it seems like it's getting really close to that. So I'm like, just wait and see, just wait and see, Sarah. And I'm just going to wait and see if it happens and see how bad it is.
Angela wants to know, do you take a lot of medications?
I don't take a lot. And I know this is a tough thing, because I was one of those people who, half my life was in medical research and half of it was in like a spiritual place where a lot of people are not going to doctors. No, they're bad. And so I'm kind of in the middle, and I will do some surgeries and some medications and some I won't. So I am only on 3 things right now, whereas a lot of people are taking many kinds of things, both medical and, I'm trying to say nice. What am I trying to say?
Like more naturopathic
yes.
or holistic, maybe kind of medications.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people are taking many, and I'm not.
LB says, do you drive alone? And if so, do you ever forget where you're going?
I do drive alone, and I have not ever forgotten where I'm going. I haven't had a problem driving yet, but it's getting, I feel like it could be going somewhere soon. So I might have to get the the glasses.
So my friend who's a doctor, Daryl's watching, and he says this story breaks my heart. And it did break my heart. I mean, not that I'm happy about it, Daryl, but 10 months ago it broke my heart and I cried. But I don't want to be sad if Sarah's not sad, because it's not going to help her if I'm just crying about this. And now you're going to make me cry, Daryl, for saying that.
Oh, well, I so appreciate you guys caring so much that you would cry. I mean, it's, I feel loved, and not that I'm saying, oh, I feel loved, keep crying. I'm not saying that. Just know that I feel okay. I mean, I feel fine about this, that I'm grateful. I'm just so freaking grateful for this life I've had, and getting to be here with you and having him watch your show. And like, gosh, it's amazing. People are actually listening and they want to hear what I have to say. Like, that's incredible.
Well, they really want to hear what you have to say, and they say they'd love for you to write the book. And maybe the writing would be hard, but maybe the speaking, like into a tape, like maybe there's a way to write it that isn't as hard as typing.
Okay. All right, everybody, I'm listening. I will talk to I have a couple good friends that have asked if I want help doing that, and I will talk to them. Thank you very much.
Linda Middlesworth says you are so brave and amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's like, this is the kind of thing you want to see, like when you're feeling sorry for yourself because of something like, like a minor fender bender, or, I'm not trying to minimize things that happen to people, but sometimes people make a big deal about something that really, in the scheme of things, they're going to look back. And like, when I think about like things, especially like when you're in high school or college, or boys, or things you got so upset at, I can't even remember any of them now, know?
Yeah. I just had something I was going to say again. Sorry, I keep forgetting.
That's okay. Maybe it'll come back. Infinite Love and Gratitude says, I have been sending Sarah sorry, my chat is jumping today. Love and gratitude ever since the first show. Yeah, that was almost 10 months and 10 days ago. I don't know why it took us so long to get back together. Nancy says she has a calming and beautiful presence. She is a gift. And she is so beautiful. She radiates joy. I love your mindset, Sarah, mind over matter. And RM says, loving your spirit. Incredible. Thank you so much. And everybody says they hope we write the book. So yeah, get it done so we can have you back on and sell it.
Yeah, well, if we sell it, I'll give the money out to whoever needs it, some organization that needs it, if that happens. So.
Is this a type, a lot of diseases have like they're caught like attached to it? Like, is this a disease where they're really trying to figure out what causes it and do a lot of research, or because it's so rare it hasn't gotten the airtime, say, as colon cancer would have?
It surprised me how much they have going on, because I used to do work in ophthalmology research, specifically retinal issues, and this is far less common than retina issues in older people, far less common, but there were a ton of research papers on it. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Let's see. Saw a comment here from Leanne. Sarah's a wonderful teacher for all of us. I hope I run into her on Maui.
Oh, thank you.
Shivani says you're beautiful and so graceful. And actually, I think I missed your question from before, Shivani, because for some reason my chat, it's like literally jumping today. Have you looked into something called immunology?
You're asking me that?
Yeah, or is that what it was called in the chat? Something. Let me see.
Have I been looking into immunology? No, I haven't.
I don't know what that is exactly anyway. So yeah, neat.
I do. I can't remember now.
Yeah. So I know what I want to ask you. Is there anything now that you're doing that you didn't do before? In other words, you always seem to have a pretty good attitude from what I remember. It's not like you were like this negative person, but is there now, because there's this time urgency where like there's maybe you wanted to paint, or maybe, I don't know, is there things you're doing now that you're actually doing because you thought you'd have
a diagnosis? Really, nothing's changed. And I think this goes back to what I wanted to say, but I forgot, is that because of my spirituality, I've really, really learned ahead of this time how to change my life. And so, one of the things I would love to ask people, and I might have done this in my last time with you, for people who believe that they're very spiritual, and you might be very spiritual, but if you are, I would ask, are you afraid to die? Because to me, if, for example, let's say you're Christian and you feel strongly about that, and it really makes you happy and whatnot, but then you're terrified of the idea of dying. I would be asking, why are you terrified? You're going to go to heaven. Like, shouldn't you be like counting the days until you die? You're so excited. And so I don't bring this up as a negative at all toward Christianity. I'm just saying that what I'm pointing out is that you might not be as thoughtful into what you really believe as you think you have been. Because if you really believed in Christianity, you would believe in heaven, and you would believe that if you're being a decent person, that's where you're going and it's going to be amazing, and you would be happy at death coming. But if you're not happy at death coming, my question is, what are you believing? So whether it's, Buddhism or Hinduism or just general spirituality or no spirituality, if you believe in no spirituality, you're like, well, that's the scary thing, Sarah, is like, if I die, I die. And I say, okay, well, if you're dead, you won't be able to experience anything. You won't be lying underground going, gosh, it's cold tonight. This sucks. You'll be gone, so that's okay too. Whatever you believe, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should believe, but I think that you should look into it and figure out what it is that you believe, because I think that pretty much, unless you believe in hell and you really believe that's where you're going, that's the only thing I can think of that should really, or that could really make people worried or sad. Everything else is like, wow, I'm going someplace I think is great. Or, okay, well, I've had a good life and I might be going into the ground, or, who knows?
It's interesting because I don't know if I necessarily fear my own death. I mean, I don't know how I'd feel if that really was like I was facing it, but I always fear everybody else's. Like I always say to my husband, please let me die first, because I don't want to have to go through losing him.
Yeah.
When you have a pet, it's like this happens all the time. And do you have any, since you have such words of wisdom for living, do you have any words of wisdom for when we lose others? Because that makes people very sad. I'm sure your family, regardless of how they're coping now, should you die, I think they're probably going to be very sad for some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that also goes into spirituality. So I've asked my family, like, think about what you believe, because I personally, again, being a researcher, I believe in, what's the word when you come back into another life?
Reincarnation.
Thank you. I believe in reincarnation. There's actually some incredible science on it. It's not just a belief thing. And I'm like, holy cow, this science is amazing, coming out of University of Virginia, and other places too. And so, and something like 70% of people, when they're reincarnated, are reincarnated with other people they've been with before. And so I'm not going to get into a whole story about that. But again, being researched by medical doctors, this is not just a, what do you believe? I mean, they've actually had to look into this, to try to prove whether they're right or wrong or making this up. So, to me, that's what I tell them. I said, look, I have to say, one of the things I'm happy about dying early is that hopefully I will die before you, because that would make life easier for me. I would be so sad if somebody close to me died. And so I can understand people being upset and being sad, but I hope that it's a short sadness. Because like when my dog died, I had this dog, like, it's like your dog, I know how much you love your dog. And that's how I was. I loved my dog so much. And by God, she had a heart attack and died. It just was like that. And I cried hard for about 2 days. And then starting day 3, it was just this immediate happiness. I would say, hey, well, how's Maggie? I'm like, oh my God, she died. But listen to this. She was so funny 5 weeks ago, or, 5 months ago, 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. I'm just so grateful that I had that dog now. And so I know that, people I'm really close to will probably feel really sad the day I die, but hopefully it's short. I'm hoping it's short. I'm hoping my husband gets married again and has another great, great wife that he loves, and have an idea who I think that should be. But yeah, it's life. And I personally believe, again, partly research wise, that we'll often see each other again. And I really hope that happens. I could be wrong, but since I believe that, it makes life easier for me.
Linda wanted to know if chemo and radiation were ever treatment options for this type of cancer.
Yes, and I've done both. So I had the chemo is actually oh, there's a chicken trying to get in my window. The chemo for brain cancer is actually just a pill. And so I didn't know that. I thought that was fascinating. So thankfully I can see my doctors back near Seattle, but or in Seattle, but take my chemo out here, so I don't need to come in all the time. And radiation, I did that early on, and that's what's causing me some issues now. Is that they told me this, but I didn't really think it would be this effective. Is they said, hey, after you've had chemo, like 6 to 9 months later, your memory is going to go down, and you'll probably forget some things. And I was like, oh, okay, no big deal, But now I'm experiencing and going, oh, they weren't kidding. But just like I've forgotten words, you're here with me, and we have a good laugh over it, so it's not a big deal.
Mm. Well, sometimes what's even more funny than forgetting words is using the wrong word. And that happens all the time. I do voice to text and I don't even check my text, and people will say, what are you talking about? So it's fine. Don't worry about
Yeah.
that. Elby says, do you have food cravings? Do you desire certain foods?
That's a really interesting question, because when I first went on treatment, a lot of things didn't taste good. And I was really only eating salads anyway, due to my talk with Dr. Furman. But then when that all ended, I started eating again. And what was really, really shocking, I could do a whole hour on this with you. I find it fascinating, is that I used to be a sugar eater. Thankfully, I wasn't eating thousands of calories of sugar a day, but I was really struggling trying to get rid of sugar. It never was easy for me at all. And then I had the surgery and I woke up, I wasn't worried about it. I mean, I haven't worried about my diet in years. I haven't tried to change it in years. So I went in for surgery, not thinking about food at all. And I came out, and sugar just doesn't really drive me anymore. It's not like I don't eat it, which I know, and people on your diet aren't eating it. But I just don't even want it that much anymore. It's like, nah.
That's fascinating. Have you asked Dr. Furman or anyone why that is? Because I'm sure there's pleasure centers did maybe they remove some of your pleasure centers? Where are these pleasure centers that they
It's such
talk
a good
about?
question. It's such a good question, because it's one of those things that, and I think so many of us are taught, oh, well, you need to be healthy, and, go on this diet, go on that diet. And everyone's paying to be on diets. And some of them I think are really helpful in general for your health. But this feeling of needing salt or needing sugar or something, it might be something that is not easily fixable. So I don't know. I'm not
Well,
really sure.
Dr. Furman's going to be on the show. My 1 year anniversary show, he's going to be March 21st, because he's the one with so far with the #1 most views. Maybe I can ask him that.
Great. Yeah. Tell him you talked to me and that this happened, and
Yeah.
what he's doing.
Have you ever looked into anything well, to me, it's not weird, but other people like Reiki or other kinds of alternative healing while you're getting your conventional medical healing?
That's such a good question, and I wish I could answer that better, because there have been so many options out here on Hawaii. And honestly, I generally don't do a lot of any kind of treatment, whether it's medical treatment or, what was where we used again?
Well, there's something called Reiki that I get. I've been getting it
Right.
for like 20 years, because it's like, and just because I love the way it feels. It's sort of like massage, but
Yeah.
it's.
I've had that before. I have a really good friend. I have two really good friends that do that. So I think it just depends on the person, what works for them and what they want to try. But honestly, if you get a diagnosis like this, it's incredible how many people come to you, especially if you're on a place like Facebook, and they start saying, "Hey, try this, try this, try this, try this," and it goes on for weeks. And so it's really, I can't do it all. It's too much. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that a rooster that I'm hearing?
Yes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, for anyone who comes to Maui, if you come to Leilani Farm Sanctuary, it's a vegan farm sanctuary, and there's tons of animals out here. And Laura Lee, who owns the farm sanctuary, she does some great tours. So,
Hey, maybe you could put me in touch with her. I can have her on the show and she can talk about her work.
oh, that would be fantastic. She's great.
I would love to talk to her. Well, let's not wait 10 months to check in with you again. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You don't have to come on every day. I know you got things to do, but maybe we can check in with you a little bit more frequently, because you inspire so many people, and they are all saying this is
Yeah.
the best episode ever. So this is
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I think you touch a lot of people by your story.
Oh, well, thank you guys. I so appreciate it. I'm glad. I'm really glad I can help.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, here, one more question. And, I know you were a little nervous because you were worried that you wanted to do it taped, but I knew that we wouldn't feel the love taped, and the people. That's why I like doing it live.
oh, okay. Okay.
I mean, we could do it taped if you want to, too, but
It turned out all right. Yeah.
it's fun having people say things like Jody, what an amazing soul. Nancy, what an inspiring show. Stephanie, I love her. And I just saw a question about sleep. Oh, here you go. What kind of sleep wake cycle do you have now?
Oh, what kind of sleep wake cycle? So I sleep fine, unless the cat's in the room. But I sleep fine. I'm just sleeping more. So I've always been kind of a big sleeper. I've always gone, if I had my time, 9.5 hours a night. Now I'm doing 10 to 11 a night. And I was taking naps every day. And now it's like maybe half the days I take a nap for an hour or two. So it's just a bit more. And they say that as you get to the end of life, when you have this, people are basically sleeping almost all day, like 20 hours a day. So that could happen. But I've been having lovely dreams. So
Well, so have the doctors told you that? I mean, I hate to bring this up, but it's like that that if you do die from this, that it will be a certain way, like this is what you can expect. Like, do they tell cancer patients that?
It's funny. I have this great doctor who said I don't want to go into a lot of details and a lot of like, here's percentage wise, blah, 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 because I really think you can go far, Sarah. So he didn't want to tell me like, I found out 7.5 months is the median. I'll just say that for my type. It didn't matter because that I just know how to look things up as having been a researcher all this time. Um, but what was your question again?
I don't even remember. But like, do they try to? I don't even know what the word is. Like prep you or tell you like this is what to look for. This is
Oh,
how.
thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So he didn't tell me a lot. He said, if you have questions, ask. And so I've asked several people, like, do I need to worry about the very end? Is it going to be really painful? Do I need to get my husband help? Like, what's going on? And they all said the same thing, which is, yeah, you'll start with some headaches, but we can treat that. And then you're going to sleep a lot. And a lot of times people will go, like the last few days, maybe they'll go into a coma. So it doesn't sound extremely painful. So it doesn't sound really that painful at all, as long as they can take care of the headache. That would be the main thing.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, it's so funny because, like, the earlier show today, I was talking to Victoria Moran, lovely, not vegan, and before the show, we were talking a little bit about aging gracefully and beautifully. And before the show started, I was talking to her about, like plastic surgery, shouldn't. And it's like when I think about that, like compared to, it just seems so ridiculous now to even think about something like that. Like when I talk to you and hear your story, like you talk about like what really matters.
yeah. Yeah, I so appreciate you saying that because I feel so strongly that way that again, like I said, we could go over this for an hour, but who we are is not what we look like and whether we've made a lot of money or not. I mean, all that kind of BS that we're taught we need to go into, those are companies trying to make money off us. We really just need to be here now and enjoy the people in our lives and the things we choose to do. I had this great question given to me once, and the question was, I remember this came off the Oprah show, and I was getting ready for a marathon, and she said on the show, or somebody said on her show, if whatever you're doing, whatever you're like, the house you're buying, the marathon you're running, whatever you're doing, if nobody could ever see that or know about that, would you do it? So let's say you're going to go on a marathon, but nobody's ever going to know. Would you still do it? And I was like, no. I wanted to tell everybody, oh yeah, I just did my third marathon. I quit and I never did another one. So I think that's that question right there changed my life because I started really realizing, gosh, that was when I was in my early 30s and I was trying to impress people. And a lot of things I was doing was so I could tell people or show people. That's not what life is about. And when you die, or if you get a diagnosis like mine where you hear you're going to die, people aren't going to be coming up to you going, oh my God, you've been amazing. You've kept your weight so low, and I'm going to always remember how low you've kept it and try to keep mine low. That's not what you're here for. People will come to you if you've been kind, if you've been loving, if you've been funny, if you've been a great friend. Those are the things that become important when you get older or when you face death. It's I think getting thinner is important for your health. I don't think it's important for you feeling good unless you're worried about what everybody's thinking.
Tell that to Hollywood, Sarah. Ray says, thank you for your beautiful spirit and great advice about living in the moment and being grateful. You're such a wonderful inspiration. Joe says, Sarah is so inspirational, transmitting love and positivity. Mary Lou says, very moving and emotional. Thank you so much for sharing your life versus and dispelling fear. And the thing, your smile is infectious, says Colleen. Becky sends a bunch of hearts. And the thing is we're all going to die. The thing is it's really, but you're actually living.
I'm living, yeah, and I'll live till my death.
Yeah.
Well, it's all good. And I'm just so, thank you all so much for saying kind things. I really appreciate that. I just want to help, and
right.
I'd love it if I can. So
yeah. Well,
it feels good to hear that.
Well, I'm going to let you go because you have a book to write now.
Thank you for reminding me. I already forgot.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
I just love seeing you.
This is why I love doing the show. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. I don't ask you this often, but please share this episode with people that you love and care about. And do come back tomorrow when we have another inspiring guest. She was a guest before. Her name is Dr. Betty, and she is turning 80 and spending her birthday with us tomorrow. Thanks again, Sarah. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.